What's up, military millionaires? Today I want to talk to you about how I became a millionaire in 5 years with just 9 simple steps while in the military. So to preface this, I spent the first few years in the Marine Corps doing all of the normal service member stuff, right? I was the tattoos, the alcohol, the unnecessary amounts of gym supplements, the women, the cars, the motorcycles, you name it, right? All of the financial things that probably weren't the best decision, I did. About the only thing I got right was that I did contribute to my thrift savings plan, but I didn't even do that right. I didn't contribute enough and I didn't put it in the right funds. I just did put some money in there, which I guess is a good thing, all right? It's better than nothing. But then in about 2015, somebody handed me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started learning about real estate, and I started digging into Bigger Pockets. And then I read the book on investing in rental properties and the book on buying real estate with no and low money down. And I learned all these different strategies, started really digging into podcasts and everything else and said, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I can replace my military income through real estate and other investments, and I think I can do it pretty quickly. And so what I did was, I was living in an apartment. I was paying $550 a month to live in one unit, or in one apartment unit, and then I bought a duplex instead, because that lease was coming up, and I paid $615 a month to own this duplex with two-bed, one-bath units. The other tenant was paying $475, so I went from paying $550 a month to live in an apartment to paying like $150 a month before utilities to own 2 units. And that was my first foray into real estate, right? So I bought this duplex, I'm house hacking. It's saving me a lot of money month over month on what I should be paying for living expenses. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden I get orders to Hawaii and I move out and I have to rent one of the unit that I was living in to somebody else. And now I go from paying almost nothing to live in this thing to earning $100 or $200 a month for owning it. And I was like, wow, this thing's paying me. This is so cool. And so that was step 1. I bought a duplex to house hack and I cut some living expenses, right? And step 2 is that I began contributing more and more money to the thrift savings plan. So I started, instead of putting in a few percent here and a few percent there, I increased it to 10%, 15%, 20%. At one point I was at 60% before I retired, or didn't retire, but exited the military. But let's say that I put it at 10%. And then I worked to increase my savings gap, which is meanings that I cut my expenses a little bit, and every time I got a new pay raise, right, the expenses, I would try to keep them down so that I was saving a bigger and bigger and bigger percentage of my paycheck. And I will tell you that the single best way to achieve financial freedom, no matter what your investment strategy, is to increase your savings gap. So the more money you can earn and the less money you spend, that's your savings gap. The more money, the larger percentage of your paycheck that you can save, the better you're going to be in the long run. So that's step 3. Step 4 is that every time I got a pay raise, whether that was a promotion or I hit the every other year, for those of you who don't know, you get a pay raise in the military your first 4 years, and then every even year after that. So in my case, this would have been year, say at year 8, I got a pay raise. Then at year 10, I got a pay raise. Then at year 12, I got a pay raise. And in the middle of that, I got promoted once. And so, or twice, yeah, once. And so what I did was all 4 of those pay raises would be, a few $100s here, a few $100s there, and I would increase my thrift savings plan allocation by 1, 2, 3%, and I would increase my savings percentage by 2, 3, 4%, whatever, right? And so then I would get to spend some of it. So let's say I got a $200 pay raise. I would put like 100 of that into the thrift savings plan, 50 of it into my savings gap, and 50 in my pocket to play with and go enjoy life, right? Because it's a pay raise, might as well enjoy some of it. And by doing that every year and every pay raise, what I found is that I'm now contributing more to my TSP and more to my investing. And then the rest of the money, yeah, I'm getting to use some of it, but it doesn't matter because I'm still increasing the amount of money that I'm saving every month, right? An extra $150 a month, that adds up quick. That's $1,800 a year. And then if you do that every year, that's $1,800. Then the next year it's $3,600. And then it's, it scales. So That's step 4. All right, step 5 is that I bought a 10-unit apartment complex. Now, I wasn't actually looking for a 10-unit. I was looking for other duplexes because that was what was in my comfort zone. And I actually hand wrote like 120 letters. This is before I started working with ballpoint marketing, which for those of you who've been around for a little bit, you've seen the handwritten letters that they generate by machines that are more affordable and much faster, and you can scale. I definitely recommend those. I'll put a link down below if you want to check them out. But before I used ballpoint, I remember handwriting 120 letters on yellow legal pad while I was on a 24-hour duty post. And I mean, I'm shaking my hand out, I'm cramping up, it's miserable. I swore I would never do that again. And I haven't, with the exception of like 1 or 2 very specific letters for like a really specific house that I might have written. But other than that, all my actual bulk mailing has been done through ballpoint marketing since then. Now, I digress. This guy gets my letter, and he picks up the phone and he calls me and he says, hey, I got your letter about this duplex I own. I don't want to sell it. However, I own this 10-unit. I'm like, well, can I see the numbers on the 10-unit? And he sends them over, and I look at them, and I'm flipping through them, and they look like they make sense, and it looks like a decent property, but you know, I need to come down a little bit on price. So he wanted $240,000. I offered $225,000. Yeah, well, there was some back and forth. We landed it under contract at $225,000. And then through the inspection period, there were some other issues that came up. So we actually closed at $212,500. And this is in 2018, February 27th, I think. I don't know. Anyway, maybe 28th. It was like the end of February. And so that property then was cash flowing, and it was it was out of my comfort zone, it was whatever. And consequently, just 3 months ago, I sold that one for $340,000, and I was able to, I had refinanced once or twice, and it had been cash flowing, so it was a really good deal, right? 212.5, 340, 4 years later. It was literally, looking at the closing disclosures, 4 years to the day later. So that's step 5. Step 6, I'm gonna figure out what to do with my hands there. Step 6 is that I then went and bought more real estate. So I bought this 10-unit. I was like, wow, that's awesome. The next thing I bought was a duplex. And then I bought a couple single family houses that I either did really quick flips to or just wholesale to somebody else. And then 1 or 2 that I held. And so now we've got a few more deals going, and I was making a little bit of income here and there on it as I'm getting more comfortable with real estate. Step 7, and I didn't actually do this intentionally, but step 7 was that I built the Military Millionaire brand. Now, when I started this in January of 2018, after a conversation over dinner with Brandon Turner at my house in Hawaii, I had no idea what the brand was going to become. At the time, the thought process was, well, I'm just going to kind of document my journey through real estate, and we'll see what happens. And that was great. It is what it is. But I did not know that that was going to become an extra income source down the road, or that YouTube would pay me $500 or $600 a month, or that the podcast would afford me opportunities to partner and collaborate with people, or that the Facebook group and the TikTok and the Instagram and the blog and all the different platforms were going to open up this plethora of opportunities through the community. And the brand actually made me 6 figures last year. And so that definitely helped with the whole Military Millionaire thing. But, you know, that was totally unintentional. The whole reason it grew is because I was just focused on adding value, answering questions, showing what I was learning, showing what I was doing. And then over time, people started asking more for, you know, masterminds and help and partnership opportunities and bringing me all kinds of different deals. And, you know, I mean, a prime example, I sold that 10-unit to a friend of a buddy of mine in GoBundance. And he and I were at lunch, and I got to join GoBundance because of everything I have going on. And he and I were at lunch, and I was telling him I was thinking about selling it. And he's like, oh, a friend of mine's looking for something just like that. And so, you know, different networking opportunities like that. I mean, that alone was close to a 6-figure transaction. And so the brand and all the networking and everything else I did, that was step 7. Now, step 8 is that I bought more real estate. I was really getting into the groove of this. So this is where I'm buying the hotel and the 2 apartments and the single family on that deal. And that year, 2021, I did 12 transactions, and I think 6 of those paid me. So I made about $60,000, $70,000 through those. And then the other 6, 4 of them were the hotel, 2 apartments, and single family house. And then the other 2 I kept as burrs, right? I renovated them, I refinanced them, and I held them as rentals. And so those all really helped me achieve, that's where I hit 2021. I officially hit the Millionaire mark, right? And then I was able to take that and go and start reinvesting and growing and exit the military because I'd achieved financial freedom. But step 9, and this is probably the most important one, right? It just all boils down to consistency. So step 9 is that I just continued to invest in real estate, TSP, index funds. So anytime I got an extra little bit of money, you know, it would go to real estate. In fact, it's actually kind of comical because my cash reserves are lower than they probably should be, because every time I get a large chunk of change, I find another deal and it ends up in the other deal. So I have found that I continually reinvest into, whether it's a syndication or my own deals or something I find, or partnering with somebody, or putting it in an index fund, or putting it in the thrift savings plan before I exited the military. And so all of these different things have just continued to help me grow that much quicker on the millionaire journey of financial independence. And so now I think it's safe to say, after 6 months of having left the military, and my net worth has increased and my income has increased, that I would say I'm financially free. And so that's what we're doing here. So the next video I'm going to show you guys is going to be me walking through this house and showcasing the Airbnb and how I was able to take this house and make it, house hack it, to help it cash flow, the Airbnb cash flow over my office, so that I have a free office space, which is part of keeping the expenses low to increase that savings gap so that you can continue to build wealth. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, smash that like button, and let's get rich.